Here we are, and Leah Jones, this year you have all three Corman siblings. We're each going to quickly give a favorite of the year.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello, and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is our annual Best of Call-In show. This is our episode for 2025. It's set up a little different than our shows in previous years. We're hearing from fewer people because I have had a little less energy this year to put into the podcast, but I would like to change that in 2026. That is one of my resolutions, is to bring back Finding Favorites, because there are still conversations that I want to have, and I guess I want to have return new guests, new favorite things that I want to hear about. Like you'll hear from Abbas later that he has started building keyboards from scratch, and so we're going to need to talk about that. So today's episode, you are going to hear from the Corman siblings. They are the hosts of the Friday Night Movie podcast. My sister from another Mr. Pam Rose. Pam and I know each other from the How Did This Get Made fandom, and we both count Jason Mantzoukas as our celebrity boyfriend. But tonight you're going to hear who her new celebrity boyfriend is, along with a lot of really great recommendations. Like I said, Abbas Jafari is back, talking about video games and podcasts. Steve Higgins, I think, has been with us every year of the Call-In show. So lots of recommendations on comics and TV and Broadway. My nephew Andy is making his first appearance with some suggestions on how to handle New Year's resolutions in a new way. Jasmine Davila joins us to talk about the heated rivalry fandom. Ezra Butler about the best gluten-free bakery he found traveling in Europe this summer. And we are going to close with Jesse Dukes from the Upper Middlebrow podcast with some great recommendations. And then in the middle, a half-hour interview with my Rabbi Michael Zedek. He had a new book come out, and so we hopped on Riverside last week and talked about his new book. And so in the middle of all these favorites is me getting to interview my favorite rabbi, this time about his new book, and some reminiscing and some Jewish storytelling, what it was like when he did a TED Talk, all sorts of good things. So I mean, let me give a few of my favorites before I pass the torch on to my guests. 2025, I went to New York a few times for Broadway shows, and want to shout out Nightside Songs, which my friend Jonathan Raviv is in. It is returning to the Lincoln Center in February. I'm going on February 15th. So if you are in New York and want to see a beautiful musical about, among other things, breast cancer, when I saw it last year, I cried for a month. It really broke something open inside of me. It is a communal musical experience, which sounds cheesy as all get out, but was one of the most moving art pieces I experienced last year. I also went to New York to see Kumail Nanjiani and Oh Mary. He is someone that I used to go to stand-up open mics with over 20 years ago. And he made it to Broadway. So I went to see him, and it was Jinx Monsoon was his Mary, and he played Mary's husband, and it was an absolute blast. And then my friend William Fitzroy and I went to New York and got together with some other Millikan alumni and saw Joshua Henry in Ragtime, also at the Lincoln Center. That cast album has been released in the last week. So seeing Ragtime was a favorite of 2025, the Ragtime cast album is going to be a favorite of 2026. In Chicago, I now live really close to Chopin Theater, and so I got to see Cocandy Productions' Amelie, one of my favorite movies of all time, and their immersive production of the musical was wonderful. I want to make sure to see more shows that are happening over there since it's walking distance. And then the Sound of Music National Tour, there is someone that I went to college with is in the cast, and that was exciting. But it is a phenomenal production. So if the Sound of Music National Tour comes near you, make time to see it. It is a story for our ages. And then I also made a point to see live comedy in 2025, and we'll continue seeing live comedy in 2026. Laurie Kilmartin, I saw her right at the end of the year. Adam Pally, saw him do a show at the Den, which later became an HBO special. He recorded it in Brooklyn, but Adam Pally, seeing him live. I went to Boston for the Doughboys 10th anniversary show, which was ridiculous and so much fun. And Dinosaur Improv did a stand at the Den, and so I went to a number of, like, 3 shows maybe of Dinosaur Improv, and did finally get to talk to Jason Mantzoukas without completely disappearing into the ground. A podcast highlight this year was getting recognized on How Did This Get Made as as one of the fans they could name. I was in Finland at the airport coming home and got a text message from Pam saying, "Oh my God, shout out on today's episode." And I was like, what could you be talking about? And Jason and Paul gave me a very nice shout out on, in fact, 2 episodes at the end of the year as one of their top fans. And that was pretty neat. The other thing, and I will have a whole episode about this, is Ronnie and I travel, and we base our travel, we're looking for celestial events. And this started after, in 2024, the total eclipse went through my hometown. We went with a bunch of other friends to my parents' house, camped out in the side yard, and watched the total eclipse. And then we started trying to see the aurora when it was in Illinois. We kind of saw it. And a year ago, I was in Curacao during a meteor shower, and I texted Ronnie and I was like, what if we do a trip where we see this Geminide meteor shower, which is every year on December 14th. What if we do that and Aurora Borealis together? And then through a friend of a friend, we found a house in northern Finland. We went to Finland for a week. We went on 2 aurora chases. We saw the Aurora Borealis, both with our cameras and with our eyes. We went dog sledding. We went reindeer sledding. We went to the ice hotel that you have seen represented on Pluribus. We went to the ice hotel in Sweden and slept in a room made out of ice. A terrible thing that we will never do again, but was truly a highlight of the year. So I will have Ronnie on and we will talk about our celestial navigations, because that was a huge highlight. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Corman siblings, hosts of Friday Night Movies. And so you'll hear from the Cormans, Pam Rose, then Rabbi Zedek, and then Abbas, Steve, Andy, Jasmine, Ezra, and Jesse Dukes will round us out. So please get those COVID boosters. Get your flu shots if you somehow didn't get one this year. Go and get those boosters. And keep resisting. And try to find time to enjoy your favorite things.
Here we are, and Leah Jones, this year you have all three Corman siblings. We're each going to quickly give a favorite of the year. And I'll try to talk about something I haven't talked about before, because I know I talked about a lot of other things on my previous episode. So I'm going to recommend what I think is the best music movie of the year, and it's called Köln 75. It's directed by Ido Fluke, and it is about a young German woman who becomes a concert promoter as a teenager and ends up promoting what becomes the biggest selling jazz album of all time by Keith Jarrett. It's a really cool coming of age, David and Goliath, super fun movie. And it's really one of the best movies I saw all year. And as a music movie goes, it's incredible. Lily, how about you? Do you have a favorite of the year?
Of movies? Or could it be TV?
Anything.
Anything. Watching F1 in the theater with Becky was epic. Because it was just me and Becky talking about Brad Pitt's jewelry the entire movie. And our husbands being like, should we leave? So
And we
that
were like,
was,
yes,
and I never
go.
go to the movies, so that was super fun. I'm really enjoying Stranger Things. Like I feel like this last season, I loved Severance. That counts as this year, right? That was January of 2025. Severance.
Sure.
I think it was January of 2025. Severance was like, after 3 years of waiting, that was a huge, like, I haven't watched a lot of movies this year. I feel like I've not watched more TV. So
Okay.
those are my top
All right.
moments.
And Beck, how about you? One
I
favorite for the
mean,
year?
I feel like that's so unfair, Leah. I'm not okay with this. Picking one
You don't have
favorite
to pick
of
one
the year.
favorite. I was just trying to
Okay,
make it
like
easy
I'm
for
three.
gonna
you.
do.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
God.
do. Oh, okay. Well, you just said pick one favorite, and I
Yeah,
know
just
Lily
to
always
make
breaks
it
the
easy
rules,
and
so I was
quick.
trying to. Okay, so I'm gonna do two favorites. I'm gonna do my favorite big, awesome, theatrical experience extravaganza, which is obviously Avatar, because at this point, I'm pretty sure James Cameron is just making those movies
Just
for
for Becky.
me. Like
Just Becky.
he's making them for me. And then I think of my sort of surprise favorite, as in, I had no idea this movie existed before I had the opportunity to see it at a festival, and it just totally won my heart, and it's something I have watched twice and I will continue to watch over and over again, is Adult Children. And that is my favorite because I feel like that's the type of movie that I know that no matter what mood I'm in, if I put that on, it'll sort of like,
That's my favorite. That's my favorite
it'll,
movie. But I didn't know if we could say stuff that hasn't come out.
well, it's in
I don't think
festivals,
either of
and
these movies have actually come out. But my
no,
episode I
it's
did
in,
with
it's
Leah
in,
this year was all about film festivals.
It's in
Okay.
festival. Well, it's in
That's the best
festivals
movie I
now,
saw.
and then hope. Listen, it's in festivals now, and I really hope it gets a wide release so that other people can see it, because that to me is just like, it's the type of movie I know I'll put on whenever I sort of need to emotionally regulate. I need
Yeah.
to like,
Yeah, to me, it's
yeah,
like that movie's parenthood great. You
yeah.
can watch it
I
in
could
any
just,
phase of life, any moment. That was my
yeah,
favorite. I talked a lot about it. Well, anyways, Leah, from all
yeah.
three Cormans, we wish you a happy new year.
Happy
And
New Year.
may you find
Happy New
many more
Year.
favorites in the year to come.
Hey Leah. Hey Finding Favorites. It's Pam Rose again, back with my favorite things of 2025. Some of my favorite things I talked about on the last few favorite things specials, so I'm not really going to harp on those, like Severance, Traders. Get into all of that, but I'm going to give you some new stuff that I loved. So we'll start with Broadway. Stranger Things on Broadway. I love the show. I'm obsessed with Vecna. We went to see the Broadway show, which is a prequel, and it was fantastic. There are special effects unlike anything I've seen on a live show before. I still don't know how some of the things are done. If you like Stranger Things and you're in New York, you really need to see it. It's fantastic. Music-wise, Damiano David, I'm going to give him a shout out. He put out a solo album this year. It was fantastic. I just stumbled across him one day. It took up a lot of my listening this year. Give it a listen. I mean, movies, you got your weapons, you got your sinners. The Naked Gun was an unexpected delight because I was nervous about it because the first one is one of the funniest movies I have ever seen. But the new one, fantastic. It's great. It's on Prime right now. Check it out. Don't be afraid of it. Live-wise, I saw some good improv this year in terms of Dinosaur. But guys, I've seen him a few times over the years, but if Ben Schwartz and Friends comes to your town, you really need to see it. I know he's cutting back his tour schedule in 2026 to only 8 or 10 shows as opposed to like the 30-something he did this year, but if they come, it is so funny. It's long-form improv. It's 4 people each night. It's great. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend Ben Schwartz and Friends. And then Leah, you and I are going to be on the same page about this. Taskmaster. I know we both watched because of Jason Mantzoukas, our shared love. And I'd heard about it. I've been meaning to watch it throughout the years. Never got around to it. Finally had to because Jason. Where has it been all my life? Fully in a Taskmaster and watching all the back seasons. It's great. And I started watching with people I knew, which leads me to my next thing and my main thing of 2025. I've got an announcement. You know, I have a lot of celebrity boyfriends, but I have a main one always, which is Jason Mantzoukas. But guys, I have a new co-main celebrity boyfriend because James Acaster has joined the echelon. He's moved right up to the top. He's funny. He's smart. He's lanky, which helps, but that's not a requirement. But most of all, he's weird. I love him. I'm all in. So I watched his season of Taskmaster first. I was like, oh, yep, in. Watched his comedy specials. HBO Max has one. Oh, Max, HBO, whatever it's called right now. Netflix has some. He's got one on his website. YouTube has a ton of his appearances on chat shows, panel shows, quiz shows. I highly recommend his appearances on Would I Lie to You? Just look up James Acaster, Would I Lie to You? Fantastic. Plus, I'm obsessed with his podcast with Ed Gamble, also a celebrity boyfriend. Off Menu. Jason was on it. That's how I knew of James originally. And then when he was on How'd This Get Made for Dream a Little Dream, a movie I had been waiting for them to do for years, ever since I saw it in the theater and didn't understand it. But he and Ed, it's a simple concept. They invite a guest on the podcast. They tell them they have a dream restaurant, go through their favorite courses. James is a genie. That's beside the point. Paul and Jason have both been guests on. We just need to get June for the triumvirate of How'd This Get Made. But it's a fantastic show. I mean, I'm not even a foodie, but it's so interesting and so funny. And yeah. So those are my recommendations. Those are my favorite things. And my top favorite thing of 2025, James Acaster. So I can't wait to hear yours. If you want to find me on the socials, it's Pamster Pam. And I'll see you next year. Bye.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and for this segment, I am joined by Rabbi Michael Zedek. Rabbi Zedek, you've met before on the podcast. He is the Rabbi Emeritus of my synagogue in Chicago. He's also the Rabbi Emeritus of his prior synagogue in Kansas City.
He made a career about retiring, yeah.
And he is also now the author of 2 books.
Not one, but 2. 2 mints in one.
2 books. And this year, I suspect one of his favorite things about 2025 was celebrating the publication of his new book, People Are Like, Stories for Young Readers and Readers Who Wish to Stay Young.
For those who are listening and watching, da-da-da-da-da!
Stunning.
Oh, by the way, I agree with you. I love this cover. I had nothing to do with it other than the approval of the illustrator. And if you're willing, a small story about how I found the illustrator?
Yes, please.
Okay. So my previous, oh boy, shameless here. My previous book, Taking Miracles Seriously, A Journey to Everyday Spirituality, which is still available on Amazon, second printing. Out of that book, I got an invitation to do a TED Talk. And the screens for TED Talks, as you may know, are quite remarkable and challenging. So the first screener said, send me an audio version of your TED Talk, of what you propose as your TED Talk. And so obviously I did. Came back with the following response. It's interesting, but it's not a TED Talk. And he sent me 3 examples of what he perceived as the style of a TED Talk.
Yeah.
It's acceptable. One of them, all right, I've already been immodest a little bit.
TED Talks are very prescriptive.
Yeah. I'll be immodest the second time. I don't think any of the speakers he sent for me to review were a better speaker than I. No. But one of them was illustrated, and I thought the illustrations were fabulous. I tracked down the illustrator. This is the person who did the illustrations for the TED Talk, and now for my lovely little book that I'm very proud of for a reason that I'll explain in a second. She was at the time in London. She's since moved back to Panama, which is her home. But in the meantime, I'm just, if anybody's interested in the book, get it for the illustrations. The stories are all right. Get it for the illustrations.
And the illustrator is Isabel Cristina Tejada Carrasco. What a beautiful name.
And that's only part of her name. But it all, by the way, one of the things I actually am proud of in terms of the book is that the cost of publishing was met by a philanthropist to the publisher such that proceeds will go to benefit scholarships for needy kids. I am making an enormous satisfaction from the book, but I will not receive a check of any kind other than the delightful check immaterial of hopefully making some differences in kids' lives.
Amazing.
I agree.
So I remember when this was just a Word doc. And you gave it to me, and you're like, I don't know, I think it needs like some illustration. You were kind of going like, how do I move it?
Yeah. Do you know anybody?
Did I know anybody? Because I at the time had just done a very I used Sharpie markers to illustrate.
I still have it, young lady. I still have it. Well, you mentioned what you're talking about.
So I wrote a children's book inspired by. So when I converted to Judaism and my dad was trying to make sense of it, he said, well, what if a Jewish family moved onto Miller Drive, which was this street in Terre Haute, Indiana, where everybody decorated for Christmas. It was a cul-de-sac. And he was like, what would happen if a Jewish family moved in and they got all these boxes of used Christmas lights and this expectation that they decorate for Christmas, but they're Jewish and they're going to do Hanukkah? And that was the question he asked me. And I turned it into a children's book, and I did these very rough and ready illustrations with a Sharpie marker.
It's a wonderful story, and boy, are they rough and ready.
I've been thinking about hiring an illustrator to really do it.
That's by the way, if you do this, the publisher Ascend Books, their real niche is young people literature. So let me know if we get to that place.
All right.
Or if you want, I'll introduce you to Isabel.
Oh. No, I may take you up on that because her illustrations are so lovely. So what is the story? Wait.
What's the story behind the story?
What's the story behind the story? But I also wanted to say to TED Talk, Ted.
Hi, Ted.
Nobody else going to TED Talk wrote and gave a new speech every week for their whole career. So to turn and say to clergy who are writing new speeches on a near weekly basis, I don't know, you didn't know how to write a speech is bananas to me.
Well, no, it was a little kinder.
Yeah.
It was that TED Talks have a specific style expectation, and what they did to my original, they narrowed it further and further and further down. I suppose in some ways it's a little bit of the nuance of attention spans have gotten less capable of maintaining more than one thought for a couple of minutes.
Yep.
So what was a suggestion of some of the themes in my first book, Taking Miracles Seriously, became one small piece of that book.
Yep. Great. So
By the way, if anyone's interested, YouTube, The Four Beautifuls is the TED Talk.
All right. I will link to it. How does this book come to be?
Well, first, an event of many years ago, in my first iteration in the greater Kansas City area, I was teaching a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds getting ready for their bat mitzvah. And I wanted to conclude my reflections with a story which unfortunately has an awful lot of currency in the present moment of our culture, our society, our world. And as soon as I launched into the story, a whole bunch of kids said, "Oh, I remember when you said that. I remember." Now, I had used that. I know people are going to find this hard to believe. I tried very hard not to repeat a story. And if I were to repeat a story, I would say, some of you may remember trying to get folks on my side, right?
Right.
So I had used that the story I'm about to suggest, 4 years earlier on a Yom Kippur morning sermon. And these kids had no business listening. It was the conclusion. They were 8 years old.
Right.
What are they doing?
Right.
And son of a gun, they remembered the story. Now, they wouldn't have told it as well as I tell it, of course.
Fair. Yep.
But they remembered it. And that taught, that was a lesson I had. People remember stories. They don't remember essays. Stories are sticky. Stories are able to remind you what to do. Sometimes they outflank your resistance to doing it. And there's exquisite range of things that stories. By the way, the story that they were remembering was about Rabbi Nathan in the Talmud. You may remember it. It's the first time he ever opens his mouth in the entire history of the Talmudic discussions. The sages are debating whether to go to the gladiatorial combats of ancient Rome. And of course they say, no, we must stay away from such horror and brutality. And Rabbi Nathan opens his mouth for the first time and says, we have to go. And they say to him, Mahasiba, which for those whose Aramaic may be rusty among your listeners, what's your reasoning? And he says, well, when the crowd shouts for the blood of the defeated gladiator and goes thumbs down, our job is to shout thumbs up. And in a world where despair and cynicism are all too easy to embrace, so what the heck will we do? To shout thumbs up, I think that's a perfect job description from which there's no retirement. At any rate, that story's not in the book, at least not in this iteration of the book. But there's 9 stories in here, 40 pages, each of them illustrated. In every one of them, I like to think, focuses on empathy and compassion, which are matters in short supply in our world. And my hope is that they engender cross-generation conversation. Because either a young child can read it, it's meant up to 6th grade in terms of reading level, or a parent could read it, grandparent, and share it with, in fact, my favorite blurb, books have blurbs on the back.
Yes.
So we have 4 grandchildren. The third in line, who at the time was 9, said, I love Pop's book, and I think you will too. That's Max. And then Ray, his little brother, who was 6 at the time, my big brother is right. Our grandfather's book is terrific. Now, what greater endorsement could you possibly have?
That is a wonderful endorsement.
Yeah, now there are some fancy schmancy people who did, but they don't count as much as my grandchildren.
No. So early in your career, you learn these stories stick with people.
Right.
And they bear repeating. Because there are absolutely things I learned about how to approach life Jewishly that are stories I heard you or Rabbi Shulman tell. Like I really think a lot still about there was a special event around the time that Terry Schiavo was in the news, and teaching about the idea of a time when a person is gosses. And then the story of a rabbi who was on his...
For those who don't know, gosses means a person's a long time in a dying condition, from which it's likely there will be no recovery.
And that a rabbi was on their deathbed, and his students were around him praying to extend his life, and his housekeeper came in and dropped a water pitcher stopping the prayer and allowing him to pass. And that in that situation where there's, 10, 15 students praying for his life, it was her who created the distraction and allowed him to die, who had done the mitzvah.
Yeah. And in fact, and the tradition, by the way, it's Rabbi Judah Hanassi. You can't get more important than him, than he. But her action is considered praiseworthy because she removed an external obstacle that prevented him from passing out of this world.
Right.
Because Judaism's got much more complexity when it comes to removing interventions that are present in the person. But that next time we have a thing on medical ethics, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Right. But that was near, November I hit 20 years since I went to mikveh. So y'all,
oh my.
It's been 20 years.
It's 20 years?
20 years.
Oh.
Yep.
Be still, my beating heart.
But that's like, it's such a vivid picture. And so I just say it to say, the short stories are such an important way to learn how to live.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's why the stories in this book matter to me. And in fact, it's among the reasons why editors can be really helpful. I want to give you an illustration and then a reflection. The illustration is one of the stories in the book is, I think the title is A Reason to Be Late. And it's about two little girls, as it happens. I'm the father of daughters, so. And they're coming home from school, and one of them, her favorite toy breaks. And in my original telling, the other child stays to cry with her, to comfort her, and she gets home late, and her parents are angry at her for being late until she explains, I stayed with Becky to ask is Betsy in the book to because her toy broke. Well, what could you do? You couldn't fix it, but I stayed to cry with her. But the parents are angry at her in my original telling for being late. The editor said, why don't you make them proud of her for being late? And I thought that was such an important and correct insight. That a parent ought to be proud of their child for wishing to be present in someone else's distress. The other example is, this was of my own invention. Some listeners may know the name Arthur Schopenhauer, 19th century German philosopher, a genuine pessimist par excellence. In fact, probably the only authentically consistent anti-Judaism philosopher in history. He hated Judaism, didn't mind Jews. He hated Judaism. And the reason he hated it is because Judaism suggested a person can make a difference in the world. And he was under the spell of the Bhagavad Gita, which had just become available in translation in Europe. And, one of the issues at the heart of what we call imprecisely Eastern philosophy is that what is what is what is. And the only wisdom is to accept it, to surrender. And Judaism has this absurd notion that you can make a difference. He didn't like that. So he says, human beings are like porcupines because it's cold out there. Before we went on the air, you were talking about your experience at the ice hotel. It's cold out there. And because it's cold, the porcupines come together to try to get warmth from each other. But the quills get in the way. So they retreat. But it's cold out there, back and forth, and always the quills get in the way until, like porcupines, we learn to live not too close and not too far. It's a very pessimistic view of human beings being isolates. I suggested in my retelling, using that image, that we can remove quills. Which I think we have the capacity to do. If nothing else, we can hug those who need the warmth of a human touch. So, and then there's stories about bullying, because every child has had the experience of either being bullied or, alas, God forbid, being a bully. Why does that happen? What can we do about it? And having conversations around it. Those are some of the stories in the book. You want to know more of the stories? I'm happy to tell you.
How have you been celebrating the launch?
Well, I've had a number of opportunities to speak in some venues. One of the fanciest one coming up in February. This is a story and a half. Okay.
Oh.
I was a guest speaker at the Pacific Association Reform Rabbis Convention last January.
Okay.
When there was some stuff going on in Los Angeles called the fires.
Oof. Yeah.
So the convention's in Palm Springs, and I learned the following lesson. You don't want to be the speaker the last day of a convention when an extraordinary number of the attendees are from Los Angeles. Because by the time it was my turn to speak, there were maybe 10 people left, right? So as it happened, it was that afternoon, which meant I couldn't get back home until the next day. I had to stay an extra night because, as many will know, from West Coast to East Coast, it's always early in the morning. It's very hard to get a late flight unless it's a red eye. Yeah. And there were no red eyes in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
So I get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the night manager and say, I guess I'm the first person you're seeing today. He said, no, there's been a steady stream of people from L.A. trying to come in to escape the fires. I get to the airport. I can't get a direct flight. I have to go Las Vegas to Kansas City.
Okay.
Now, I hope I'm not alone. Las Vegas is my least favorite airport in the whole world. Yeah. It's way too noisy. There's not a single healthy thing to eat in the whole airport. At any rate, I'm getting off the plane feeling very sorry for myself, and the person behind me says, excuse me, are you Rabbi Zedek? I said, yes. He said, I just finished reading your book. It's the not the new one, the other one, Taking Miracles Seriously. It's very interesting. I'm a professor at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. Would you be interested in coming to speak? I said, would I be interested in coming to speak?
Of course.
Yes. So I'm doing 4 days in February, which will include People Are Like and Taking Miracles Seriously at Belmont. And then a few, there have been events from here and there and everywhere, and also a profile in a magazine, a review that appeared in a Las Vegas magazine. So at the moment, the initial printing was 15,000 copies. I still think we have a few copies left.
Okay.
But just to run down real quickly, the stories in the book. One is people are like porcupines, people are like dogs, people are like fish, people are like monkeys, people can learn something from diamonds, people are like redwood trees, people are like God is the concluding one. And then I have a reason to be late, which is an effort to try to suggest that even when we can't do anything, we can do something. And then because the publisher said, it's very expensive to publish a children's book because it's in full color. He wanted 40 pages. So one of the stories in there, which has also got this lesson about empathy and compassion, is the first story I ever told as a rabbi. I made it up. It's Harry the Hippo. And it's essentially a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer story.
Right.
Harry is teased by all the other animals for being so heavy. He only has one friend, a bald eagle, who's teased for being palate challenged. And they go to the wise owl to get advice. Every one of us has a talent. Just needs to celebrate it and embrace it.
Yeah.
And then there's a fire, and Harry's great weight, it makes it possible for all the other animals to survive. And they feel sorry that they were such SOBs. But, so that's the penultimate story. The last one is based on a true story that happened to me in Kansas City many years ago. I'm walking out of a family service, and the dirty little secret, Leah, I'm going to tell you the dirty little secret of a family service is the rabbi or the other clergy of other isn't speaking to the kids. They're speaking to the parents, pretending they're speaking to the kids.
Yep.
So this lovely little girl said, Mommy, the rabbi, and by the way, everyone could hear her because she was using her outdoor voice in the sanctuary. Mommy, the rabbi confused me. I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. She's going to say, honey, he confuses everybody. What's the big deal?
Right.
Instead, the mommy said, why is that, honey? And the little girl said, "Mommy, the rabbi said God is bigger." Now she said than us. I wish she had said than we are, because that would be the more proper grammar. But she said than us. And the mommy said, "That's right, honey. God is bigger than us." And no matter where a listener might be on the God idea, the universe is clearly a lot bigger than we are. So, and yes, God's bigger than we are. But Mommy, the rabbi said there's a part of God in every one of us. And that's one of the amazing, chutzpahdik, outrageous claims that Jewish tradition brings to the world. To put it in less theological language, every human being is of infinite value. There's a part of God in every one of us. And the mommy said, "That's right, honey." And then this, I think she was 4 years old, what for me is the most brilliant theological statement I've heard thus far in my life. She said, "Mommy, if God is bigger than us and God lives in us, wouldn't God show through?" And we've all known people like that. We might not use that language, but there's something exquisite or beautiful or attractive or exciting, or to use the simple word, they're filled with enthusiasm. And I use that word intentionally because for those whose Greek is rusty, enthusiasm comes from the Greek word enthusiasmos. It means to be full of God. Now, your Hebrew isn't badly, as I remember. So you may know that the Hebrew word that is translated into English as enthusiasm is hit la'avut. It literally means to be on fire. And maybe others get warmed by the fire that we express, and that could start a spontaneous combustion. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
It wouldn't be bad.
Anyway, those are some of the stories in the book. You want one more?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that's fascinating to me about redwood trees is, in addition to being among the most long-lived living things on our planet, they're also the tallest things on our planet. And if an engineer were to be consulted, redwood trees couldn't possibly grow as tall as they grow because their root network is too shallow. In fact, I don't know if this will show up, but that's the illustrator's notion of the root network. And
Nice.
if you
I like those hearts in the middle.
There's the heart in the middle. Yeah. But redwood trees never consulted with an engineer. They've solved the problem. They literally, and it's one of the rare times when we use the word literally correctly, they literally hold each other up. They intertwine their roots, which is to say, I can't get taller unless I help you get taller as well. Whereas most of us live in a world in which if I make you smaller, I get bigger.
Yep.
Whether it's clicks or insult, it's all too much the rhythm of far too many lives, and it never works, which is why we do it over and over again, because the full expression of what I need, namely some self-esteem that comes from inward, cannot happen unless I'm working to uplift others as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a great discussion to have with a kid.
And some
Boys are so better than I'm telling you.
Wonderful. And where can people get this book?
Well, if you're in the greater Kansas City area, it's available in a number of bookstores. It's available at the Kansas City airport. It's available at a series of shops called Made in Kansas City. But at the moment, the only way I know for others to get it is on Amazon.
Yep.
Boo hiss or otherwise, right?
Yep.
It's an amazing instrument. It does have it. In fact, reminds me of a story, because as you know, most things remind me of a story. In September, I gave a series of sermons at the largest United Methodist Church, certainly in North America, maybe the world, has 20,000 members.
Wow.
4 sermons, 7:30, 9 o'clock, 11, and 5 p.m. Thank God for tea, otherwise I would never made it.
Did you give the same sermon 4 times or 4 different sermons?
Well, it was the same theme, but it was extemporaneous, so it was sort of like,
Okay.
And the senior minister wanted me to speak about the first book, which he had purchased 150 copies of. Mm-hmm. Now, when I left for the 7:30 service, Taking Miracles Seriously was plus or minus on Amazon the 300,000th best-selling book in the country. Mm-hmm. They sold out of the 150, and then he directed people to go to Amazon, and Amazon then sold out, on waiting list, right? When I got home that evening, it was the 3,000th best-selling book in the country, and it was #1 in a whole bunch of categories, and they put bestseller by it.
Ooh.
But here's the thing that was fascinating to me, and why I'm telling this story, even though there's immodesty behind it. When I left for Sunday morning, the book was selling for $13.
Uh-huh.
Now that they had sold out, it was selling for $20. That's the marketplace at its most common and probably least positive. But,
yeah, at its most digital.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I agree, and outstanding, and they are mild. You know, you're too young to know that. It was some cigarette commercial.
Yeah, I'm far too young.
Yes, absolutely, and you shouldn't know it. But.
No. Well, great. I hope that people.
By the way, when you were in the Scandinavian countries, I was at B'nai Yehuda, at Emmanuel.
For Hanukkah. Yeah,
for Hanukkah, and we sold 24 of the books.
Great.
Which was one case. But.
Yeah. Yeah, it is not just a Hanukkah book. It's one that people should get for whatever the young people or people that are young at heart in their lives. It is not a specifically Jewish book. It's a values book. It's a values book. And beautifully illustrated. Did you, for the people are like dogs, did you give her pictures of Jake?
Oh, that's so sweet of you. No. For those who Jake was our amazing golden retriever, a rescued dog that rescued us as well. And it was just, it's so, Leah, I'm so grateful that you remember him because he's been gone a long time.
He's been gone a long time.
Our hearts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was with us. He was with us the day that you. Jake was with us the day you said I could go to Beit Din.
Yeah. Well, now I know why you remember it. That's for sure. So let me get to the dog. There's the fish, and here's the dogs.
Aww.
I would say more Labrador Retrieverish, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But he's got Jake's coloring. Jake was a frequent employee at B'nai Yehuda, at Emmanuel. What is it? It must be, I'm doing services tonight at B'nai Yehuda here in Kansas City. That must be why it's on my mind.
Yeah.
And on top of that, don't tell anyone. I don't know whether I'm going to wear a tie or not. And if I don't, it will be the first time I've ever led a service without wearing a tie. So let's take a vote.
That seems impossible. You've led services at camp. You put on a tie for Shabbat at camp?
That doesn't count. I mean, come on.
You wear a tie at every service you've led in Israel, you wore a tie? In Kansas City, you wear a tie for services because it's more formal. And in Chicago, because it's more formal.
Yes.
Okay.
So what do I do tonight?
So in between the Appalachian and the Rocky Mountains, you've never led services without a tie on.
Well, I throw myself on the mercy of the court. Oh, it reminds me of a great story. We got time for one more?
We got time for one more.
Now, I think you've heard this one. It's about a rabbi by the name of Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim. It means the one who desires or intoxicated with life. He's called as a character witness for one of his students who's on trial in Poland. And some may know that in Europe, it's not always trial by jury. It's oftentimes just trial by a judge, or 3 judges or a judge and 2 lay people. At any rate, the defense attorney introduces the rabbi to the judge by suggesting why he's calling him. And he says, "Judge, you know what the Jews say about this man? He is so saintly that on one occasion he had returned home and found that a thief had broken in. And the thief, surprised by the rabbi's sudden return, ran away. The rabbi runs after him, shouting, 'I declare all of my property ownerless, all of my property ownerless.' It's a Talmudic category, which if it's ownerless, there's no crime." By the way, aside, sounds very much like Jean Valjean in Les Miserables when he's brought back and the bishop says, "You forgot the other candlestick." But
right. Yep.
Back to the story. He said the judge peers down at the defense attorney and says the following: "You don't really believe that, do you?" And the defense attorney says, "I don't know, Judge, but this much I do know. They don't tell stories like that about you or me. So quite clearly, unpacking it, they'll tell stories about us. Are those the stories we want them to tell? And with that, I conclude this moment for the sermon hour. Leah, it's a great delight for me to see you, to
I
welcome
love
you
getting to
back
catch up.
home.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for giving people an opportunity to know a little bit more about the book. I hope you buy it. I hope you buy it. I hope you buy it. That's what do they call that? Subliminal marketing.
Subliminal marketing, yes. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, I think you should shock everyone in Kansas City and not wear a tie tonight.
It's a deal.
All right. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Zedek.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Leah. Thank you for inviting everybody to do this. This is really, really terrific. I'm going to just recite a number of things in no particular order and hopefully this comes out okay. This year I started playing video games pretty hardcore again, and I've been really, really enjoying that. I did that to take a mental break from everything, just to temper my temperament at angry, annoying men. So I do this every few years just to sort of veg out and chill out, and it really does work. It just took extra long. It took like 2 or 3 months of just diving into it, and it does put me back into the place where I can be sort of direct my energy as best as possible. I built a gaming PC. It's a lovely little mini ITX one. It was a nice little pet project. I'm only going to play games on it and do nothing else. So I've been playing Geometry Wars, which is a Robotron worship style game. It's like a little twin stick shooter. You're a little guy, like a little shape on a screen, blasting other shapes on a screen. And there's these interesting surfaces on which you have to ride around and get little power-ups. It's very goofy, very, very silly, very fun and engaging. Another one is called Ball Pit. It came out new, and it's like a Breakout style game, except you can pick different characters and get little power-ups, and it's just, again, very chaotic and very silly and campy and fun. And then it's got these little interludes where you build this little farm and town and then farm wheat and wood and stone and resources and then just get power-ups. It's very silly. And a handful of others have been a lot of fun. And then I bought a Switch 2 specifically to play the newest Metroid Prime game, Metroid Prime Beyond. It's the 4th one of the series. They've been a bunch of them, but I've been waiting for this game for years. It was delightful. I mean, that is my favorite video game series of all time. I mean, I've been a fan since the original Nintendo series. Metroid Prime on the Nintendo GameCube is one of the greatest video games ever made. And it still is. They remastered it, put it out for the Switch. It's awesome, and I recommend everybody play it because it's just an absolute brilliant work of art. It's just so engaging, so fun. It's not too difficult. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not overt. It's just the right level of, you're going to get what you get out. You get so much from the time that you put into it. So the newest iteration of that was also a very fun game. Probably doesn't stack up quite just because there's some nostalgia there, but it's still very, very fun. And then I did purchase The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I've been deeply engaged in that. That is just a ridiculously expansive game that is just... It reminds me of hiking. There's a lot of hiking around mountains and all this terrain, and it's very realistic, and it's ridiculous, and you have to prepare your meals and supplies, and I'm like, this is a lot like real life, and it's really wonderful. So, all right, that being said, I did travel a bit. I had the fortune to go out to the American Southwest and come back on a road trip. We stopped at Itality in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is indigenous vegan food. It is my favorite place to eat in the entire country. I want to fly the chef out here just to set up like a pop-up event. I can't wait. I got a new job last year. I moved on to being full-time this year, and my work team is awesome, so I'm going to give my work team a shout-out. They are just magnificent people. I am so fortunate, and I really love the people I work with. My students that I still tutor on the side, they're awesome, hardworking, incredible kids that just want to learn, and it's a gift to be able to work with them. Tilted Axis Press, they're going to be shifting operations, so I'm going to be more advisory on accessibility and publishing, but I love what they do. They're doing deeply important work in the translation space. Cable management supplies, obsessed with it now. Keyboards, computer keyboards. I could do a whole episode with you on this. That awakened a beast of a hobby that I've always enjoyed them, but now I'm sort of starting to learn to build them from scratch. Not there yet, but getting there. Podcasts, in addition to this one, the Pam Mandel and Amy's Canned podcast, huge fan, I love it. Of course, HDTGM and Magic Tavern. I got a Snuggie, and I have a squirrel sweater that a friend gifted me. It's a cardigan, and I'm totally obsessed with it, and I don't want to ever take it off. There's a show on Netflix called Arcane that is one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. It's just an animated show, and I cannot give it enough accolades. Like, it's just so beautiful and brilliant, and it really pushes animations to heights where I was like, this is really making use of the medium so magnificently that you just couldn't do with any other medium, I don't think. All the Chicagoans being Chicagoans and resisting ice and just powering through. And I could go probably on and on about this, but this is enough. I know I'm over. Thank you for doing this incredible show. Thank you for everything that you do. And you're one of my favorites. Take care. Bye.
Hey Leah, this is Steve Higgins, dropping you a line to tell you about my favorite things of 2025. You know, last year was a real dumpster fire in a lot of ways, but for me personally, I celebrated several milestones, and it was a pretty good year. I reached my 20th anniversary of teaching at my college, Lewis and Clark Community College. I've been an English professor there for 20 years, and we celebrated that. I also celebrated 15 years of publishing with my comic collective, Ink and Drink Comics. We released our 27th book, and we are currently prepping work of a best of book that we're going to do a Kickstarter for in the coming year. And also, I released a collection of my own comics, a fantasy comic series called Catharos, a number of short stories all set in the same world about the same group of fantasy characters. So, yeah, 2025 was pretty good for me. And it was a pretty good year for entertainment as well. My most obscure thing that I want to say was one of my favorites of 2025 is a comic that I absolutely loved. It's being published by Image Comics, and it's called Assorted Crisis Events. And each issue is a short story that are all set in this world where time has been broken by a crisis of some kind. And each individual issue is dealing with ordinary people who are trying to cope in this world where nothing makes sense and everything is on fire. Seems kind of familiar in a lot of ways. Yeah, the sci-fi trappings of the book are really just about just a way for the creators of the book to examine the hardships of life and the ups and downs, the struggles that people deal with in our world. They've released a trade paperback of the first 5 issues together, and I would highly, highly recommend that to anyone. Again, it's 5 short stories, and some of the stories are things like there's a woman who is trying to cope with life when she goes to work and finds out that they don't have any records of her ever having worked there. People blink out of existence, and she's struggling and trying to find her way in this world. There's another issue that is about a guy who keeps kind of jumping forward in his own life. One day he's graduating college and the next day he's working a job and he doesn't know what that job is, but he's been working there for 3 months already. And while he's at his job, he's searching for apartments, and then he's moving into that apartment. And then he's lived there for 3 years with 6 different roommates. And, it's basically about how life slips away from you, how time keeps moving so quickly. But for him, it is very, very literal. Again, every issue is its own self-contained story, and it is absolutely heartbreaking every single month when it comes out, and it's beautiful. It's a fantastic, fantastic book. The other things that I liked a lot in 2025 are much more popular things, things that I'm sure your listeners will have heard of. My favorite TV shows, both from Apple TV, were Severance and Pluribus. And yes, those things were incredibly popular and were in the zeitgeist a lot, but that's because they were so, so good. Both, like Assorted Crisis Events, are stories that have some science fiction trappings, but use those elements to explore things about the human condition, about what makes us who we are, about what we have to deal with. I don't need to explain the concept of Severance, I'm sure, to your listeners. I'm sure a lot of them are already very, very familiar, and they'll go, oh yeah, no, I watched that. But if for some reason one of your listeners is not somebody who has listened to Severance or watched Severance, or someone who has not watched Pluribus, maybe because they don't have Apple TV, like now it's a good time to go ahead, sign up for a 1-month trial for Apple TV and binge both shows. There's only 2 seasons of Severance. There's only 1 season of Pluribus. They're, all told, we're talking about 25 episodes probably of both shows, and they're just phenomenal viewing, both of them. Severance dealing with people who willingly separate their work lives and their home lives by creating an alternate version of themselves that wakes up the second they get at work and then goes to bed the second that they leave work. And the version of themselves that they are at work is a different version than they are when they are at home. And along the way is exploring ideas of identity. And Pluribus, a story that is about an end of the world apocalypse style catastrophe that happens, that really only one survivor is the one who thinks it's a catastrophe, because everyone else in the world, save for 13 people, all have their minds joined to become a hive mind. And our main character, Carol, is one of the few who remains separated, unjoined, and is struggling with the fact that everybody else who wasn't joined wants to solve this problem by becoming joined rather than wants to bring the world back to the way things were. There's a lot of discourse online about Carol's character being unlikable, but I can't help but think, how would you react if everything in your life changed, if the person who was your person, your significant other, died in the process of this magical, wonderful thing that everybody's claiming is great? You feel like you're the only person who can see it for what it really is. You're going to be a bit testy at times. So highly, highly recommend both of those shows from Apple TV. Again, if you do not have a subscription to Apple TV, sign up for a month, binge these shows, and, cancel your subscription until new seasons come out, whenever they eventually do. My favorite movie of 2025 is K-pop Demon Hunters. And look, I was like a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, I'm sure, that I thought, that's not for me. I'm not an anime fan. That's not for me. I'm not a kid. And then I watched it with my daughter. Yes, my daughter had to convince me to watch it. And so I'm so glad she did, because it was amazing. It's a beautiful piece of art. Animated story about these 3 young women who their day job is that they are pop stars, and their side hustle is that they hunt demons. And it's a brilliant world that is created in this story, and the songs are amazing. And it's popular for a reason. You know, you look out there and you see how much it's grabbed a hold of a lot of people, and you think, oh, that's not for me. We have this contrarian streak sometimes within us of not wanting to take part in things that are in the zeitgeist because, oh, that's not for me. That's popular. It's too cool. I don't want to be a part of that. Watch it, and you'll be surprised how much you love it. It's amazing. My last favorite that I want to mention is also kind of staying in the realm of Korean things, and that is I had the opportunity this summer to go to New York and see the Tony Award-winning musical Maybe Happy Ending, which is probably my favorite experience of the entire year. The musical has science fiction trappings, but explores the human condition, much like everything else I've mentioned. It's about helper bots in this world of this story. People are able to buy robots that help them in their daily lives, but just like any piece of technology, eventually they become outdated and they get retired. And so our two lead characters are two retired helper bots living in a retirement community for robots that have outlived their usefulness. And the lead character, male character, is male robot, I guess, is played by Darren Criss. The lead female robot is played by Helen Shen, and they are both amazing. They both sing the songs so beautifully, and the songs are so heartrending. Claire, the female robot, is very bitter against mankind because of her experience, whereas Oliver, the male robot, has a lot of hope. He hopes that his former owner is going to come back for him one day, and the two of them meet and interact, and they're both very different, but gradually they begin to fall for one another. And it's very sweet, it's very heartbreaking, it's a wonderful, wonderful musical, and currently still on Broadway, coming to tour, a national tour in the 2026 year, and I cannot wait to see it again when it's on tour. So those are my favorite things. Sorry that this was so long-winded, and I hope your listeners decide to check some of these things out.
Hi, I'm Andy, and my favorite things of 2025 was playing Minecraft in person, like LAN games, bird watching with friends, going on hikes and bird watching, meeting new people, going to the beach. These are going to anime conventions, doing cosplay photo shoots, making and wearing cosplay. And for my resolutions last year, we did a 6x6 bingo board, which is such a bad idea because you really want that middle square for the free space. But so you do 5x5 or 7x7, but the numerical difference between 5x5 and 7x7 is just a lot. But you know, so this year I'm doing punch cards. We actually got I think we got like a good amount of things done. I think we got 30 something things done on the bingo board, but I think we're missing those crucial 4 things to not get a bingo. But this year I'm doing punch cards. So it's do X amount of chores, get a reward. And they're all personal growth chores, which is for me, go to figure drawing sessions and practice rendering like art and stuff like that. So I'm really excited for 2026 and these bingo cards, and you know, Happy New Year.
Hi, Leah. It is Sunday, January 4th, 2026, and I am submitting a voice memo at your request to talk about something that I loved in 2025. There were many things to love about 2025, but the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, the television series Heated Rivalry, based on the series of books written over the last few years by Rachel Reed, now available as a television show, distributed in the US on HBO Max, produced by Crave Canada. It's wonderful, it's hot, it's funny and serious. It's basically everything that I, as a fangirl and television watcher and human being, could ever want in a television program. A lot of my enjoyment from being a fan of this show is getting to know the community of fellow fans and observing how they express their love and their enthusiasm through the show, through various social media posts, creating original fan content like fan fiction, edits of clips from the show, fan art, the whole shebang bang. And what I wish for this fandom is that this energy and this enthusiasm for the show, as well as for the creators, is sustainable. I have to confess to a little bit of concern for all of the folks I saw posting their sort of crash out videos, especially on TikTok and Instagram, where, you know, you'd watch an episode and you'd get on and there'd be a lot of, you know, screaming and crying and, you know, just having a meltdown over how passionate and how emotional the show can be. And that's great, but it's also a little worrying. I'm sorry, I'm an old lady, you know, I worry about this kind of stuff. It also makes me think of how much I don't rather enjoy as much as others those reaction videos that people post. It's like, I get it, you're super enthusiastic, but, you know, when you start seeing the same sort of reaction video over and over again, it gets a bit tiresome as well. Maybe that's bitchy of me to say. It probably is, but whatever. But to get back to Heated Rivalry, the show is delightful. It's super fun. The reaction to it reminds me a lot of how Barbie, the movie, was received when it was released in 2023, or was it 2022? And how a lot of folks are like, this is revolutionary. I've never seen this before, and I can't believe this is coming out of a Barbie movie. And, you know, how much it resonated with a lot of people, and how it almost instantly, you know, so created a really interesting and great sort of space for discussion and discourse around women and femininity and things like, you know, standards of beauty, commercialism, all that good stuff. And I think Heated Rivalry is just the beginning of that, or just the beginning of that discussion as well on, you know, related topics when it comes to masculinity and queerness and representation and autism as well.
Hi, my name's Ezra Butler, and my favorite thing from this past year was a gluten-free bakery in Berlin called Jute Bäckerei. For a little bit of context, I spent 2 months traveling through Europe by train this past summer, on what I called my Summer of Curiosity tour. And I decided to give myself a side quest of finding the most delicious gluten-free bakery, patisserie, or boulangerie that I could find. And I ran into a problem, which was I found a lot of really incredible gluten-free bakeries and a lot of really delicious gluten-free pastries. But none of them transported me back like Jut Bakarai. It was the first time that I had ever been in Berlin, and I remembered walking up the Strasse and feeling the sense of nostalgia, even though I had never been there. And realized that it reminded me of Tel Aviv, a city I lived in almost 20 years ago, because not only the Bauhaus architecture, but also all the people brunching on um, the patios and the kids riding bicycles. And it was just really, really nice. And I walked up to the bakery and I took one bite and I was again transported back 20 years to before I discovered my celiac. And I turned to the woman who worked there and I said, "Is this heaven?" And she said, "Yes. Why?" And it was, again, I felt transported. I felt like I was eating the brown bread, which I had loved again. And while, again, like I said, I had had a lot of great gluten-free baked goods, this was the first one that took me somewhere else. And yeah, so Happy New Year, Leah. Thank you.
Hello, it is Jesse Dukes coming to you on New Year's Eve. Leah asked me to answer the question of what I loved in 2025. I think 2025 was kind of a crap year. I had a good year personally, but just sort of for the world. But I found myself, maybe because it was a crap year, reaching out to old comforting books and albums and movies and going back to things that were familiar, maybe things I hadn't checked in on in a while. And one of those that I loved and will recommend is John Steinbeck's short novel, Cannery Row. I actually reread Cannery Row twice this year, once while I was actually visiting the Monterey Bay area, and then I just read it again because I liked it so much. I also read the sequel, Sweet Thursday, which I think is also pretty good, almost as good. And it's just the poetry of everyday life. I'll read a short excerpt of Cannery Row. This is the very first paragraph, which I think is brilliant. Cannery Row in Monterey in California is a poem, a stink, a grating noise, a quality of light, a tone, a habit, a nostalgia, a dream. Cannery Row is the gathered and scattered tin and iron and rust and splintered wood, chipped pavement and weedy lots and junk heaps, sardine canneries of corrugated iron, honky-tonks, restaurants and whorehouses and little crowded groceries and laboratories and flop houses. Its inhabitants are, as the man once said, whores, pimps, gambler, and sons of bitches, by which he meant everybody. Had the man looked through another peephole, he might have said saints and angels and martyrs and holy men, and he would have meant the same thing. Another book I loved this year that I read very early on in the year was Ted Chiang's Exhalation. I might have read that last year, but I thought about it a lot in 2025. It's a collection of short stories. It came out in 2019. A lot of the stories, or some of the stories, are about artificial intelligence, even though he wrote it 3 years before ChatGPT. So not everything is right, but it is exceptionally smart. We talk about it on the podcast Upper Middlebrow. And that reminds me, another classic collection was Isaac Asimov's Robot Stories. There's several collections, but my friend Justin and I read a collection called Robot Visions and also talked about it on Upper Middle Brow. And finally, one thing I loved this past year is fishing. I'm in Southern California, and this year I started paying attention to how people do saltwater fishing. I grew up doing, or I was in it as a teenager, I did a lot of saltwater fishing in North Carolina. It's not something I've done that much of as an adult, but since I left Chicago, I found myself more and more attracted to it. And it's become a joy, and I just want to put in a plug for fishing. It's not for everybody, but it's one of those activities like skiing, sailing, surfing, bird watching, hiking, that just requires you to be a little bit more attentive to nature. To catch fish, you kind of need to know something about the fish. Wherever you live, probably there's a good place to go fishing 45 minutes away, and there's a way that the locals fish that spot, and it might be fun to learn about that. You can go to a bait shop, you can go on YouTube and sort of try to figure out how your particular waters are fished and what species are fished for there, which ones are the sort of the target trophy species, which are the run-of-the-mill species that are easy to catch, which ones are considered the exciting fish, which ones are considered the trash fish that actually taste pretty good if you know how to prepare them. All that's endless fun. So I wish you a happy new year. Well, and just to prove I'm not a total fuddy-duddy, I'll add one more thing, which is I did like one new album this year, which was Wet Legs Moisturizer. As far as I know, that's the only album that came out in 2025 of music that I liked. But there's one. I'm not totally old. Happy New Year.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.